Thank you, Ramona, for the great introduction. And just to reiterate what Ramona said, thank you, everybody, for making the effort to come out here today. We got some fantastic voices of the industry with us today. I'll start just introduced from one end to the other. Klaus Kohlmayr, the Chief Evangelist and Development Officer for Ideas. We got Tini Diekmann, who is the Director of Revenue and Deputy, is that me? Director of Revenue and Distribution and Deputy Manager here at this amazing venue. And Thibault, who is founder and CEO of Catala Hotel Consulting. So first of all, thank you all for coming along and joining us today. If you don't mind, I've got my questions here, so I'll get my notes out so we know where to start. So we're going to have a little run through of revenue management as a subject, a little bit of look at what went on in the past, what are we doing today with revenue management, and maybe a little few insights into what we think the future of revenue management will look like. So in that order, obviously starting in the past with modern revenue management, or I guess revenue management starting in the airlines back in the 70s and 80s. So starting to look at the bookings and changing their rates for early bookings and so on and so forth. I guess throw that to Klaus. Klaus, beginning with you, can you take us through the origins of revenue management from the hotels? I know from the hotel side, ideas started around the 1989, exactly. So I knew it started in 1980s. So it would be great to hear from you how that all started and where you see from there.
Thank you. When you answer the question wrong, you get a push button and the trapdoor opens and we go in the water, right?
It's a little bit, I did say to someone earlier, it looks a bit like a Beast Game setup.
Squid Game. All right, revenue management. I was looking today in our CRM system and I found the first ever contract signed by a hotel with Ideas, which was in 1993. So we've been talking about revenue management for many, many years. At that point, we didn't even have a system yet. The contract was just to build a system. And that resort in the US is still our client. So we've been talking for 37 years about revenue management, obviously very different many, many years ago than it is today. I used a revenue management system back in the early 2000s, and stunning how the technology has evolved since then and the capabilities that we now have that I wish I would have had as a revenue manager in 1998 and 2000.
But what was it, what was the basis of the revenue management at that time? Like looking at what we are able to do now, what were we missing back then?
Well, the foundation is the same. You need forecasting, you need inventory management, you need then pricing. What we didn't have is the access to the amount of data that we have today, the capabilities to churn that data very quickly around and produce, like we do 20 billion decisions every single day. The scalability and the capabilities of it is very different. And when I got my first revenue management system, we had to put a big box into the hotel that cost about $100,000 as a server, and you had to get a stack of 25 floppy disks and load up the system to install it. So all that's changed with cloud, obviously, and the cloud-based systems now. So scalability and the amount of speed that we have now to turn data into decisions is light years from where we used to be.
Thanks, Klaus. And so shifting a little bit now closer towards the present day, Thibault, what's the current status of revenue management and its adoption across different accommodation types today?
Yeah, I think it changed a lot compared to what Klaus was mentioning. We used to be very data crunchers, like data geek. Like the revenue manager was a bit black box, like we didn't know what he was doing. And now the good revenue managers are actually getting out, they talk to people, they influence, they communicate, they present. So the role of a revenue manager changed a lot, I do believe, in the last few years. And then, of course, I do believe this kind of technology changed at a speed just insane. Before we were just crunching number on Excel. Today we change price like 1,000, if not 5,000, 10,000 times a day for any specific day. So it has increased in awareness. We started with very like the big brand, the big box, the big hotel, and now more and more I see independent hotels. I see like mom and pop getting you, or just like they have heard about revenue management, and they say like, okay, maybe that's something I should try. So I do believe in this kind of extension and awareness increasing in the last few years of revenue management. So quite an exciting time nowadays.
And talking of adoption, Tini, you have a more recent experience of them. So you've recently implemented revenue management system here at the hotel. It would be lovely to understand from you exactly what your experience of that was and what it's brought to you as a revenue manager.
Yeah, I think I like your expression, Klaus. You said light years from now, like the last 5 years seem light years away from me, because only 5 years ago we started with a cloud-based PMS, then with SiteMinder, of course, to have the channel manager, and then we were developing every year a little bit, and then only since about 6 months we have a revenue management system. And I think it's incredible how fast the technology is evolving. So you're talking about 93 when you had the black box and everything. And to me, even the last 5 years in our development seems to me like we went from the Middle Age to the 21st century in just 5 years. So we're also going to talk about the future. So I'm very excited about the future, thinking how much only changed in the last 5 years.
Absolutely, yeah. And Klaus, just back to you in terms of the present day, what would you say are the fundamental ingredients today for effective revenue management in now we're in 2025?
We'll see if everyone agrees or not. I think there's 4 core components. One is good data and good integrations, because you need to have the data coming into the system and being able to send it somewhere. So you need to have an amazing quality of integrations with partners. You need to have a great forecast that's powered by external and internal data at a level that is very granular. It goes not just segments and room types, but what segment, what length of stay, what kind of forecast are you trying to produce for what type of situation. You need to have inventory management, what room or room type or a selection of rooms you're selling for what period of time. And then you need to have finally dynamic pricing, obviously, which gives you the ability to price not just a room, but many different components and understand the relationship between all your different products that you have. So you need to have the 4 components all together, working together to produce the optimal outcome.
And I guess, Klaus, you've probably got the most experience in this, but obviously anybody feel free to jump in. If we look at other industries, such as airline or cruise, and I think you've had some experience, ideas with that recently, are those ingredients remain pretty much the same in our sort of neighboring verticals?
Yeah, we've done revenue management for parking since 2008. We just announced a product for cruise lines last year, so we're expanding that. The challenges are the same. The 4 components are exactly the same. Cruise lines work more on promotions, so it's more promotional activity that plays a bigger role. Parking lots are more complex because when you, for example, at an airport, you have different terminals and you have different parking lots at different terminals, so the complexity increases. So you have the same 4 challenges, but the application is a little bit different.
I can add something here. I do believe the core fundamentals are the same. If you go in cruises, if you go in plane, if you go in hotel, that's the basics. That's very important. And now we see more and more application of revenue management towards more hybrid solutions, like hybrid properties, even with floating inventory. Just this concept in revenue management, it give me goosebumps. That's a kind of a nightmare. But we see application for hostels, for bed optimization. So now it's becoming much more broad than before. And the next step, I do believe, is moving from this kind of ref power optimization to total ref power optimization. That will be the next step, which IDs is working on, yes? Yeah.
Fantastic. So you said at one point there that car parks are a little bit more complicated, and that just kind of brings home that revenue management in itself is certainly not simple, because you tend to find, well, a cruise ship is surely more complicated than a car park. But it's amazing when you dig into these different verticals and different industries, exactly the complications that come into actually getting effective revenue management out of any space in any business. I'm going to, well, I would say to anybody, right? But maybe I'll start with Tini about ancillary revenue, because we mentioned car parks as a separate business, but obviously hotels and everyone else, they have other spaces, even like this pool that we're floating above right now, that are potentially a revenue space. And obviously, there's some revenue being made from this pool now. But Tini, and to anyone else, what's your experience there in terms of revenue managing spaces outside of the typical bedroom?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really important for the hotels or hospitality in general to get revenue from all kinds of spaces they have and also get the most out of it. So it's really good to do the yielding, not only for the hotel rooms, which is already known for a long time, but I mean, you can yield just basically anything. So for example, car parking, we also yield the parking. So it's in our other hotel, it's a lot more expensive to park in the summer than in the winter. Then we yield this event location. We have the high season, we have the low season. Also the pool itself, we started to yield actually this year. It's a little bit complicated with the ticketing system, but you can go to this pool even if you're not a hotel guest. You can use it as a public pool. We installed a ticketing system on the website, and now we installed a price change that it's more expensive on the weekends, which is a high demand phase, and now we will also try to put it more expensive in the evenings, which is also high demand. And I mean, we start to yield almost anything. For example, to us belongs also the language school, which is just behind me. You see the buildings. And there we even started to yield washing machines because we had the problem that the students all wanted to wash after the classes and on the weekends. It was really full. So I said, just ask me, why don't we yield the washing machine? And now we're yielding even the washing machine. So just you can yield and revenue manage everything.
Yeah, so we just have to look at everything we see in life and see how can we revenue manage that. Absolutely. And if you didn't con on, maybe you can still go on the website and come for a swim tomorrow before ITB, if anyone hasn't already thought of that. Moving swiftly into the future, right? And Thibault, I'll start with you. We discussed the history of revenue management and the core ingredients we have there for success. What do you think, looking ahead, will really drive the wider adoption of revenue management, particularly among smaller properties in the independent hotel segment?
The biggest one, in my opinion, is the ROI you drive from revenue management. Because when you see that hotels which are implementing the ABC of revenue management increase by plus 10, 15, 20% revenue year on year, and you start to lose market share because you're not implementing dynamic pricing and so on. So there's a bit of a FOMO here. you want to jump on this. So I do believe ROI is the biggest one. Then you have this kind of automation, technology, AI, which is actually progressing very, very fast. And I do believe that's also as well helping the operation and helping the full guest experience. And the last one, to increase the adoption, I do believe in education. There's a lot of education to be done. And even today, we talk about AI, we talk about revenue management, we talk about a lot of things. But what you were saying, Klaus, 90% of hotels worldwide don't have a revenue management system. It's just insane. Like the rest of the market is just far behind.
What was that number? 90%?
90%. 90% of hotels don't have a revenue management system. That's correct, yeah? So there's a big part on increasing awareness of revenue management, a big part on increasing the education and changing the mindset of everyone in the hospitality industry to realize there's a huge opportunity in the market that is here to grab. So education for me is the biggest part on increasing the adoption.
And I mean, for me, obviously, simplification as well, right? The larger a hotel and they're more complex, the more resources they have. But as soon as we're getting down, as you mentioned earlier, mom and pop hotels and anything in between, it's the simplification of the delivery of that, right? Cool. And Tini, as we discussed, you went through this in the not too distant past. In terms of in the future, if you were talking to your future self and you could say, hey, look, if you're going to go through this again, here's 3 things to remember. Like, what are the strategies that you would look at if you were implementing a revenue system now?
Okay, I think the first thing I would tell my future self is do it earlier. Yeah, I only did it 6 months ago, and we are having our 10th anniversary now next year, so I should have definitely done it earlier. And I'm really impressed by your numbers, Thibault. 90% are not you, because I was thinking I was the last one who didn't have one, but okay.
It's coming. That's next year.
Okay, oh my God. So I could really suggest every hotel, especially we're a small hotel, we only have 70 rooms. But I would really suggest also small hotels to have a look at the revenue management systems, because it really saves you so much time, so much trouble. Try it at least. And I mean, you can see my tan, I think. I just came back on Saturday from my vacation on Madeira Island, and I wouldn't have been able to do it if I wouldn't have a revenue management system. I mean, you can really easily and relax better if you have a revenue management system, I have to say that.
I used to say the same about SiteMinder. I still do. Yeah. But as technologies become wider and wider adopted, they just become staple, and something else comes and fills up your time. And that, right now, it's probably revenue management. Thibault, Klaus, a conversation about a future of revenue management can't really be had without talking a little bit about artificial intelligence. And I can't believe we got this far along, and we haven't really discussed it in any great detail. So, Thibault, I wonder if you could just break down in simple terms the key changes that are beginning to take place via AI and automation, and how that's going to help to impact us positively, hopefully.
I mean, the most important thing about AI, ChatGPT, tools, and so on, very, very important. Any AI is not here to replace you. It's to be used as an extension of your team. It's very important to free up your time to do something better, not to replace your team. Because I see a lot of owners, operators, they said, okay, we're going to implement this AI tool or ideas or SiteMinder with AI and so on. And I said, okay, now I'm going to cut my payroll by 20%. I said, no, that doesn't work like that. Actually, people are going to spend less time on tactics, on pricing, on report, and so on. And you're going to do something much more important on strategy, on experimentation. So there's a lot of mindset change as well that is going to happen. And I do believe at the moment we are at a tipping point in revenue management where revenue manager needs to evolve by like 360. If we don't evolve, the job of a revenue manager will be completely destroyed. We're not going to have a revenue manager anymore in the next 5 years. And I do believe this kind of new framework where we move from descriptive revenue management, used to be like that, prescriptive revenue management, the strategy, and I do believe now we are at a tipping point to evolve towards a much more experimental revenue management, and that's the role of a revenue manager, to try, to learn, to test, to iterate, and to be much more agile, to be much more scientist, to try new things and to see what is working for you. I do believe that's the angle, the human angle, to be able to continue in view of AI and tools.
Thank you so much. And look, we're just about at time, but I'd love to wrap up with a quick thought experiment. So it's 2030, and revenue management technology has evolved in ways we're just beginning to explore today. What is the single most exciting thing that revenue management technology is enabling hotels to achieve in 5 years' time? If I could just take a quick one from each of you. I'll start with you, Klaus, of course.
My key words are always merchandising and personalization. I think revenue management is moving into merchandising and personalization very quickly, and that's what the hotel industry wants. Selling more pools and taking longer vacations.
Sounds very good. And I think it's very bold to want to predict the next 5 years, because we saw what happened in the last 5 years or since 1993. So I think we cannot even predict it. AI is developing so fast, technology is developing so fast. What I would personally like as a hotelier, I would like the revenue management to tell me on which channel I should promote, on which rooms I should promote, and also to predict the future. That would be great. Like which events?
So predict where your next guest
Yeah,
will
like
come from,
when will
for example.
Coldplay have their next gig in Berlin or something like this.
Fantastic. That's a future I look forward to.
And the last one, I do believe we have been talking about this for the last 50 or 100 years, but towards a much more holistic revenue management, moving from RevPAR to total RevPAR. I do believe that's where we should go next. Not only looking at RevPAR, rooms revenue, but the total revenue, and even adding some profitability into it. I think that would be the dream.
Fantastic. And look, I'd like to take this opportunity, thank you all for joining us and taking your time on stage and giving us your valuable insights. And we're going to free the stage, leave your mics behind, and we'll have a Mona back.